My name is Brian Chu, and I've been a teacher for 19 years. 9 of those years have been spent in PPS. I currently teach 7th and 8th grade social studies at Boise Elliott Humboldt, which will eventually become Harriet Tubman Middle School. The absence of transparency, process, protocol, and accountability created a toxic work environment at Lane Middle School under Brenda Fox, who undermined our collective effort to do what we, as teachers, do best, which is to teach. In the end, another colleague and I were unassigned for speaking out. I find it ironic that she placed 2 Lane students on the cover of her framework, and I wonder if she even remembers their names. PPS cannot say they stand for racial equity when a white woman who has done harm to middle school communities of color has been put in charge of creating a framework that will be used to—
Point of order. Just want to hear your commentary, but as a point of order, we don't take testimony on specific individuals and staff. So just please, we want to hear the gist of what you're
this is
trying
not a
to convey.
framework. This is not a framework. It's a compilation of tired, recycled catchphrases and acronyms. Intellectually rigorous, real-time, qualitative stakeholder input using an equity lens, CCSS, SBAC, CARE, PLC, MSIT, PPS, aka mostly BS. This is the crazy making that has become synonymous with PPS. So, I'm just gonna read it. So, I'm reminded of a staff meeting where somebody said if the Common Core state standards are in place, then it doesn't matter which teacher is in front of the classroom. One of our union reps asked for clarification, and that person stood by her words. So in this person's mind, teachers are replaceable and disposable, equivalent to fast food workers, and not the artisans that we are. Fast food restaurants provide their employees with a framework for how they want their business to operate. A set of rules, a set of protocols, a hierarchy, a system, a structure, a schedule. Using a business model, let's imagine for a moment that this person who created the framework is applying for a loan. The middle grades framework is the business plan this person put together in order to get the loan. And the middle school teachers and the school board are the bank. According to this person's framework objectives that you all have, this person's business plan is to develop a business plan. That's the objective. And her business plan is to be developed by the bank that she's pitching her business plan to. This is called circular reasoning, which is defined by Wikipedia as a logical fallacy in which the reasoner begins with what they are trying to end with. No mention of how to turn this into a final product or how to deliver that product or service to market. This business plan, this framework, should not be approved. And I'd like to end with 2 quotes from 2 people that should be consulted when drafting any educational framework that is student-centered and culturally relevant. If you stick a knife 9 inches into my back and pull it out 3 inches, that is not progress. Even if you pull it all the way out, that is not progress. Progress is healing the wound, and America, PPS, hasn't even begun to pull out the knife. That's from Malcolm X. Leaders who do not act dialogically but insist on imposing their decisions do not organize the people. They manipulate them. They do not liberate, nor are they liberated. They oppress, and that's Paulo Freire. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's nuts.
What part of the philosophical background stuff bothers you, Brian? Can you do an extrapolation a little bit? Yeah.
On the framework,
you know what I'm talking about.
I do.
Because there is a lot of education-ese, we used to call it back in the old days, in there. And so what do you think is missing that should be added?
There's a lot missing. I'm going to focus on one specific thing, which is actually in the document.
Okay.
I'm going to refer to the text as teachers do. So if you look at the objective, there are 2 objectives. That's on page 2, and I don't have it in front of me, but what did they do say? Oh, here, we'll read them right here. So this framework, which we're supposed to be using as a framework, the objective of the framework is develop middle grades framework. That makes absolutely no sense. If you strip off, okay, I'm going to read the whole thing. Develop middle grades framework that is student-centered, culturally relevant, engaging, and intellectually rigorous. So you strip away the jargon, what it says is the objective of this framework is to create a framework. Done. Second one says the framework is guided by educators well-versed in the social, emotional, and academic needs of young adolescents. Take away the jargon, the framework is guided by educators. It's not.
That is the intention that's been put
so
forward.
philosophically, that's already problematic because it's a framework, right? The objectives are wrong. If I'm a teacher and I'm teaching a lesson, my objectives better be tight, understandable, and I better be able to achieve them. This is just insanity.
It's
right.
Basically it's a philosophical statement is what it appears to me to be, which is then going to be used as the guide. That's what I'm saying.
And if that's a guide, then we're in trouble because it doesn't make sense.
What philosophical things do you disagree with in the statement, or what one should be added? Do you have other ones?
The framework is a glossary. As I said before, it's a glossary of just terms, random things that a lot of them doesn't make sense. So I mean, I'd love to see the bigger framework that you guys have. Yeah. That would be interesting because based upon what I've seen and what's posted, it does not make any sense. Yeah, and at the middle school input
we can get
meeting,
you that larger document.
I'm not going to have time to read it. I mean, I teach.
Mr. Reiser?
Thank you, Brian.
Good evening. My name is Chris Reiser, and I taught at Woodlawn School for 3 years before following the program over to Ockley Green School, where I teach 6th and 7th grade English language arts and social studies. I'm here to strongly urge every member of this board to vote no on endorsing this middle grades framework. It is the spoiled fruit of a rotten process. And if any of you were to vote yes on this, what you would be endorsing is the systemic corruption, the worst elements of PPS culture, which have already unseated a superintendent. Further, a yes vote will all but guarantee significant problems in the process going forward. Process matters. The end of my first year at Woodlawn brought a transition in leadership that was questionable and similar in process to what happened here. The principal there would arrive after students in class, no show. She would walk around the building with no shoes on. But she was foisted on Buckman, bowing out through a school improvement grant that called for a change in leadership. Listening sessions were held. Parents said they wanted a leader of color who was culturally competent and would bring in arts into the building. What we got was a high-level administrator's wife. Looking back, I could see that coming from Reekie in Southwest Portland to Woodlawn in the heart of the old black community as white families took over was a calculated move on the part of PPS. But the community was not heard. From my experience at Ockley Green, I believe time and leadership were the determining factors that led to fundamental breakdowns of the rollout. There is nothing in this document that gives me hope that Tubman or Roseway Heights will be any different. I was one of the voices that spoke in favor of opening Ockley Green this year. I can say now that time was a factor in our ability to build the systems and share information about our students that would allow us to be successful. And if my reading of other documents related to Tubman and Roseway Heights opening this year are at all accurate, I hope you back off those plans and take the time that you have to roll out schools in these communities the right way. Nevertheless, we have an all-star team at Ockley Green, the vast majority of whom self-selected to be there, who are ready to dig in and go hard for these kids. But our chosen leader tied our hands and enforced systems that belied his lack of understanding of the middle school concept or how young adolescents operate. He did not. Again,
I just want to refer to our rules. I'm sorry, but that we don't take testimony on individual personnel.
With all due respect, Mrs. Constam, I'm not naming names, but I'm speaking to the process. So I hope that what you as board members and people in the community are hearing is the problem with process. So I'm taking names out, but I'm talking about process.
That's valuable. Thank you.
So this person was not able to build student-centered or student-responsive systems, let alone empower the most excellent team of educators to do it from the place of knowing where these kids came from and what they're accustomed to experiencing. And even when it was becoming increasingly clear these systems were unworkable, that person drilled through without stepping back to hear from us what we needed to make things work. The results were low morale among staff, wild behaviors from students, and our having to go back to August-September system building in March. That's a heavy lift for us who have to enforce the welcome changes, and especially for students who have spent a year acting how they want to act. I respect that person as an individual and an educator, but he wasn't the right person for the job. I sat next to a high-level administrator who said, "This is the best we have." And if that's the case, I'm frightened.
You should be.
Because that was not the best for that school. That was not the best for those kids. That was not the best for us as educators. And what that shows is that this process, right, and I had that person's name handed to me in an envelope before teachers were given a listening session, right? So when I look back and I'm asked to come in on a day that I'm recovering from illness and give my time and effort when my family's still recovering, and I come and I bring it and I give my full input, and to have that then to see without being told that this is happening, we had to find out, that is a rotten process. And so I don't care how good the document looks, you guys need to make a decision based on whether or not you want to perpetuate this type of process for how we build systems. And I would recommend that you step back and you engage well-respected educators from across the district and start this thing the way it should be. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any further comment? You have a question?
Yes. Thank you. The way that I see this document is a philosophical one, and that what you're talking about, and to some degree what Brian's talking about, is where we're going, which is to involve people in the decision making that goes. That's what I'm thinking is going to be the case. You heard me ask about, I'm not sure I can assure that. I can't assure that. But I see this as a philosophical document. So I want that clear for when I vote for it, which I probably am, that's what I understand. It's a philosophical argument. I happen to agree with the stuff, the process things that you're talking about. The processes have been horrible in the last 4 years in the school system since I've been on the school board, and you both know I've fought them heavily and hard. But what is it in this philosophical document? Do you have stuff in there that you disagree with, or that think you need to have added? Have you looked at that document?
Absolutely.
Because I'd be real interested in that. I
Unfortunately,
can certainly make amendments on it.
I wish I had as much time as the three individuals who are sitting up here to talk about changing paint on the curb.
You can answer this question as much time as you want.
Yeah, so yes, there are things in that document, starting with the objective, which again, right, that's supposed to be the root of the tree, right? So if this thing is a tree, where is it growing from? What is the soil that it's planted in, right? And as Chu says here, right, when you look at it, there's some really great words in there. Trauma-informed practice, yes. Restorative justice, yes. Well, we have restorative justice at my school. You want to see what that looks like? And by the way, I've only seen the people that are responsible for this thing in that building 2, maybe 3 times, and they've never set foot in my classroom. So I feel like this whole process, right, is really fundamentally flawed. And in that document, what you have is almost nothing when you actually dig into it.
Well, I think that's a fair point, because this is not an implementation document. And
It's a framework.
And so,
you know,
what I would say with this discussion is encourage you both, please, to be part of the solution, be part of the process moving forward from here. Have these really difficult conversations.
I mean, I was on DBRAC, right? I went through the whole process from the bottom all the way to the top. We wrote board policy, the administrative directive, all that stuff. How did that roll out after we finished doing that? I mean, what do dress codes look like at all the schools right now? Because when it came time to actually go, hey, look, we created this document, we've gone this far, we better make sure that it carries through. And right when that happened, it is gone. And how? So I mean, if you go to every single school and you ask them, how did that dress code, the new policy and the administrative directive, what happened? I mean, there's people still wondering, like, what's going on with the dress code? And that wasn't on the district dress code advisory committee. We went all the way, and I even said, hey, you know, I will put my time to sit here and make sure that this rolls out correctly. If you want us to build PDs, I'm not getting paid for it. I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do. Other people can sit back and get paid 6 figures while we're sitting here struggling. I'm a single father. You know, I'm still here at the school board meeting at 8 o'clock. I'm teaching like a full day of class at Boise Elliott Humboldt. I mean, so at the same time, we have put in the time, and we are the solution. Bottom line.
And,
thank you very much.
And yes, Ms. Constam, you know, I hear what you're saying, and that's why I'm here right now, you know, is I'm taking time, not getting paid for this. I appreciate it. I'm here because I love the students that I see every day, and the students that I see every day, I see them underserved every day. That's why I'm here.
Thank you.
And so when I'm coming to you to say, I need you not to vote on this, I need you to vote no on this, the reason that I'm coming to you is because I've been through this process. And it doesn't feel good. And the thing is we're stakeholders. We're at the bottom of the list. I didn't hear a thank you. We were the last ones consulted on this, and yet we're the implementers. And in the middle school concept, right, you have to wrap around the students, right? So we as educators understand you're not going to teach them anything if they don't trust you, if they don't respect you, and if they don't think that you understand them and where they're coming from.
Right. Thank you very much.
And
both
so
of you.
as an educator, that's how I felt like I was a student that wasn't trusted or respected and like my voice wasn't heard. So thank you guys for your time, and I hope that you all vote no.
Thank you. Ms. Houston, do we have further public comment?
We have one. Gabrielle Mercedes Boulevard.
Good evening.
Good evening, Dr. McCain, PPS Board of Education, and Student Rep Bradley. Thank you for listening to me. First of all, I want to thank the other two speakers here tonight. I work 7 days a week as a social services executive director. I'm exhausted. My 7-year-old son was hospitalized last week, and yet you see me come to every single board meeting. You hear me testify. Why? Because I care about all of our students. This process was not transparent. It was not accountable. There's no accountability. It did not include stakeholder input. It did not go into Auckley Green and look at a school that we just implemented, the first middle school in a decade. We have 49,000 students right now. At one time, we had 80,000. PPS should be an expert in educating students, and yet every day we continue to fail our students. Equity is not applied. It is embedded in everything. It is not an afterthought, it is a forethought. Yet we throw around these buzzwords expecting that something's going to change. Every day we lose kids. I challenge you all to tell me right now what the enrollment is at Auckley Green. And then I challenge you to all tell me what it was the first day of school. We're losing students. We lost more students last week. This document, I've spoken with Chris Rousseau. I've spoken with Assistant Superintendent Antonio Lopez. I asked over and over and over this entire school year, please engage our community. Please come into the first school, middle school, to open again in a decade. Meet with us, talk with us. Co-Chair Amy Constam, you said we need to have a listening session back in October. You sent out an email. It still hasn't happened. That should have been used to help inform this framework. I agree that this framework is nothing. So let's go through this and read the resolution. The Board of Education endorses the recommended working draft of the middle grades framework. Yet all it is a bunch of buzzwords. This is not a framework about how we educate our students in a middle school. The second one, the board acknowledges and appreciates the middle grades implementation team for its planning and stakeholder involvement in developing the working draft of the middle grades framework. Who are these stakeholders? They certainly haven't been our community. They haven't been the teacher community. They haven't been the teachers that are responsible for teaching our students and know how to do their job but are disallowed. And you all know what happened at Auckley Green this year when the best was put in that school and since removed. The last one, the board directs the superintendent to further develop an implementation plan for Roseway Heights and Harriet Tubman middle schools aligned to the working draft of the middle grades framework with the intention to open Roseway Heights and Harriet Tubman middle schools for the 2018-19 school year. Need I remind you that the word says intention? Only intention. No resolution yet to assure that students who continue to be left behind will have equitable educational opportunities in middle grades. It's incredibly frustrating to me to continue to come here and take my time that I don't have when I am literally working 7 days a week to beg you not to vote for this resolution, not to support this resolution. This is not what our students need, and it's not in their best interest.
Thank you.